Long time no see. I'm working as a flight attendant here. What are you doing now, Tyler? After dropping out of high school. At the airport, after more than a decade, I ran into Ashley, a beautiful former classmate from France, with whom I had a falling out back in high school. She ridiculed me when I decided to drop out of high school. Being a high school dropout, you couldn't possibly be doing anything significant. Why are you even at the airport? Ashley still had that tough look in her eyes and spoke to me in a condescending manner. I answered, feeling a bit uneasy. I'm a pilot for your company. What, you? A pilot? That's impossible for a high school dropout. Well, actually, as I was about to explain, she was called away by a colleague and left. Ashley and I, reunited under the worst circumstances. Little did we know, from this point on, our lives would become intricately intertwined. My name is Tyler. I'm a first-year high school student, part of a family of 4 including my parents and younger sister, Sky. My father's parents have passed away, but my mother's parents are still alive. They live in France, and my grandfather is French. So, I'm a quarter French. When you're a quarter, classmates often ask, can you speak French? But being a quarter doesn't mean you're born with the ability to speak French. I'm currently studying hard to communicate with my non-English speaking grandfather via video calls. I haven't met my grandparents yet, but hope to visit France and meet them soon. This makes me passionate about my French classes, putting extra effort into both preparation and review. In my class, there's Ashley, a returnee from France, and we always compete for the top spot in French tests. Ashley beat me to first place in the last test, so I'm determined to outdo her next time. During tests, everyone sparks off their own rivalries, but our class generally gets along well. Recently, more than half of us went to an aquarium even though it wasn't a field trip. Of course, Ashley and I were part of it too. There, Ashley and I ended up competing in pride, getting a French version of the aquarium guide pamphlet, and had a tough time. After all, it's a guide to the aquarium, so it's full of rare fish names. Since it's all in French, we had no idea what it was talking about. Both of us thought oh no the moment we opened the pamphlet, but with each other watching, it was too late to back out. We spent the day desperately with that French pamphlet, but honestly, we couldn't understand even half of it. Come to think of it, a few weeks before the aquarium, we also went to an aviation museum with a few people. I love airplanes and aspire to be a pilot. Ashley, who got free tickets, invited me and a few close friends. The museum showcased the history of commercial aviation and the latest technology in passenger aircraft, which thrilled me. During a break at the museum's cafe, I passionately talked about how amazing airplanes are, which slightly put off everyone else. But among them, Ashley was the only one who listened without disdain until the end. I guess Ashley must really love airplanes too. Those carefree high school days seemed to have a clear future, but that turned out to be a sweet illusion. It was on a snowy day, as the first year of high school was coming to an end. In our region, it rarely snows, so we didn't have any snow removal tools prepared. But considering the snowfall that night, we decided it'd be best to shovel, so my parents went out to buy one at the home center. The home center, located along the highway and quite far, would usually require a drive, but we didn't have chains, of course. Driving in the snow was deemed too dangerous, so they set out on foot. While my sister and I were house-sitting, we talked about how late Mom and Dad were. They were so late that we joked they might be drinking coffee at a cafe because it was too cold. They were unusually late. Just as we started to worry if they had slipped somewhere, an unknown number called my phone. Hesitantly, I answered, only to find it was a call from the police. My parents had been hit by a truck that slipped while they were walking along the highway. An ambulance was called immediately, but they passed away before they could be operated on. It was I who answered the call, but my sister understood everything from my expression and burst into tears. Holding her, I cried too. The suddenness of it all left me unable to think. I was only 15 and could do nothing but cry with my sister. What were we to do now? With our paternal grandparents in the U.S. already passed away, our only option was our maternal grandparents in France. They flew to the U.S. immediately upon receiving the news. During the wake and the funeral, they proposed, "Why don't you come live with us in France? We have spare rooms, so you can each have your own, and don't worry about school. We can enroll you in one over there." Leaving the U.S., where I was born and raised, was daunting, but with our parents gone, we had no choice but to rely on our grandparents, who were kind and made us feel safe. My sister felt the same. "It's sudden, but I'm quitting school and going to my grandma's place in France." When I told my classmates the next day, they were all surprised. Naturally, I hadn't wanted to burden them with the news of my parents' passing, so I kept it to myself. So, for them, it was like the guy who had been off for a week suddenly came back to school only to say he was dropping out. Especially Ashley, who was strongly opposed. "Tyler, come down and think. If you drop out of high school, you won't be able to do anything in the future. You want to be a pilot, don't you?" she said, near tears with anger. But I, having just lost my parents, couldn't afford to consider the true meaning behind Ashley's words. What did it matter if we couldn't do anything? We, siblings, were in trouble right now. Our only reliance was our grandparents in France. I was not without my fears. "It's none of your business. I'm going to France," I snapped. Ashley and I, usually on good terms, shouting at each other like this, shocked everyone in the class. Neither of us had the luxury to care about the surroundings, and we stormed out of the classroom. The next day, and the day after, Ashley was absent from school. Leaving without making up, I departed for France. Years have passed since then. Upon arriving in France, I was immediately enrolled in a high school there. I thought I had studied French quite a bit, but the French medium classes in French high school were truly challenging. My grandparents taught me words over and over again. They would read textbooks and school notices with me, translating them into English whenever I didn't understand. My sister initially struggled to fit into the French middle school, often crying, but within 2 months, she made friends and eventually became better at French than me, even teaching me slang. Thanks to my family, I never failed a grade and progressed through high school. Gradually, I no longer struggled with the language and went on to university. I fulfilled my childhood dream and became a pilot. After working for a few years with a French airline, I was headhunted by an American airline and returned to the U.S. Today, taking in the familiar air of the U.S., at the airport, I suddenly spotted a nostalgic figure. Ashley. During high school, I had a falling out with Ashley, who was now, as a flight attendant in the airline I'm about to join next month, walking confidently in uniform, pulling her carry-on. Ashley, when she saw me rushing over, she widened her eyes in surprise. But then, Ashley said with a hint of condescension, "Long time no see. I'm working here as a flight attendant. What are you doing now, Tyler?" After dropping out of high school, I answered, feeling a bit awkward. "I'm a pilot for your company." "What are you, Tyler?" Ashley looked puzzled. "That's right. How about we grab some coffee?" I was about to invite her to talk about my time in France when it happened. Called by a colleague in the same uniform, Ashley hurriedly ran off. Ashley, who had been beautiful since high school, had become more sophisticated and even more beautiful as an adult. The slim flight attendant uniform suited her very well. I watched her retreating back in a daze. Just before turning the corner, Ashley glanced back at me for a moment. Our eyes met briefly, and both of us quickly looked away in a fluster. After finally meeting, were we still unable to reconcile? I muttered to myself. The fact that I had parted ways with Ashley on bad terms had always been a nagging thought at the back of my mind. Still, working at the same company might mean something. I'm sure an opportunity to make up will come. Shifting my mood, I headed to greet the company. Next month, my first flight with the new company was to Paris. It was my first flight only in the sense that it was with this company. I've been flying for years. It was just another day of flying safely. Safely arrived in Paris, I was taking a moment to relax at the airport. "Tyler, would you like to join me for lunch?" One of Ashley's colleagues, a flight attendant, invited me to have a meal. She was quite beautiful. Well, most flight attendants are, but she was particularly stunning. "Lunch sounds great. Hey, why don't we invite Ashley too?" I suggested, thinking it would be more fun with Ashley joining, but her colleague let out a small sigh and quickly walked away. "Tyler, you're as oblivious as ever," Ashley sighed. "What's the matter? You two not getting along or anyway?" "Ashley, how about lunch? I have a prior engagement." "Okay, no worries then." She curtly declined, leaving me aimlessly looking out the window. Despite saying she had a prior commitment, Ashley didn't leave immediately, but after a while, she glanced outside the window with me, then said "well then" and disappeared. I raised my hand slightly towards Ashley. She said she had a prior engagement, but I wondered if it was with her flight attendant friends. Ashley, traveling the world as she does. She might even have a boyfriend in Paris. The thought unsettled me for some reason. Maybe I still have feelings for Ashley. Of course, I liked Ashley back in high school, but that was over a decade ago. Even in France, there were girls I liked. I had a girlfriend during my university days, and there were a few women I fancied while working for the Canadian airline. Yet, being this unsettled just because a casual dinner invitation was declined. It seems I still haven't gotten over my first love. With a wry smile, I headed to a cafe for some bitter espresso and a light snack. A few days later, when I was piloting the flight back to the US from Paris, something happened. Just as we were about to arrive at Los Angeles, my plane got caught in severe turbulence. Until just before it hit, there were no abnormal readings on the instruments, so it must have occurred suddenly. The aircraft shook violently to the left and right. Today, Thomas, who was on his first international flight as a co-pilot, was with me, and he was completely panicked, unable to even report back to the ground as he had been doing effortlessly just moments before. I immediately reported the situation to the ground and requested support. "Excuse me, Tyler, I have a report for you. Several passengers have sustained injuries," Ashley reported while I was requesting support. Though her words were calm, her voice shook, and her complexion, visible in the mirror, was far from good. Turbulence isn't rare when flying, but this time it was unusually intense. "Stay calm, Thomas and Ashley, it's going to shake, but take a sip of water," I said, trying to sound calm and composed, as they are the people I'd want to rely on in an emergency. Though my tone was calm and slow, my mind was racing. Then, a warning light indicating an issue with the engine started flashing. This was unexpected. Still, responding to unexpected situations is part of being a captain. I told myself to calm down 3 times, then took a deep breath. Next, I made an announcement to the passengers, explaining the current situation. Due to the shaking, there's a higher risk of injury, so I asked everyone to be careful. Even though it's an emergency, fortunately, we're close to our destination airport, and I informed them that we're aiming for a landing as scheduled. Simultaneously, I kept in close contact with the air traffic controller. Thomas's hands were still shaking, but since it was his first time on an international flight and he was faced with 2 issues at once, I could understand his panic. Ashley, please support Thomas, I requested. I understand the feeling of being overwhelmed, but he is still the co-pilot. It's crucial for Thomas to regain his composure quickly and support me. Ashley, who had taken a sip of water and looked a bit better, I asked her to follow up with Thomas. I was grateful that the air traffic controller was experienced. When the engine trouble occurred during the turbulence, I feared the worst. However, thanks to the controller's precise guidance and instructions, I managed to land the aircraft safely on the runway. Later, I heard that when we landed, the passengers inside the plane burst into applause. I regretted frightening them, but I was relieved that no one was seriously hurt, apart from some minor bruises and scrapes. Tyler, you are an incredible person. I knew you were a skilled pilot from what the boss said, but this is beyond my expectations. After landing and seeing off the passengers, Thomas, who had returned to the cockpit, grabbed my hand while crying. No, I just did what a captain is supposed to do. In reality, my legs were trembling a bit, but I hid this nervousness and managed to smile. If it were any other pilot, the worst could have happened. I'm here and fine, and all the passengers are safe, all thanks to you, Tyler. Your judgment was really outstanding. It was the air traffic controller who gave us really precise instructions, so we owe it to them that we made it, I deflected. To overcome such a crisis and still be so humble, I'll strive to become a person like you, Tyler. Thomas, deeply moved by the safe landing, was crying for quite some time. After taking Thomas to the ground, I approached Ashley, who was inspecting inside the plane. Ashley, are you okay? I asked, noticing she seemed to be limping a bit. Yes, I'm sorry for losing my composure earlier. No, it's natural to be startled at first, but you quickly became calm and helped Thomas, which was a great help. I had to get back quickly to support the passengers because they were all anxious. Ashley said with a smile. Did you hurt your foot? Just a little. I twisted my ankle while trying to support an elderly passenger during the turbulence. Let me take a look. I'll take care of it, I offered. I made Ashley sit down, carefully applied a wet compress, and wrapped it with a bandage. Wearing heels probably made the twist worse. It was swollen badly. There was also a cut on her knee, possibly injured at the same time, which I disinfected. Tyler, Ashley began, wincing from the pain of disinfection. I said something terrible when you told me you were leaving high school. It's late, but I'm sorry. It's okay, don't worry about it. I was also stressed and spoke harshly at that time. Sorry. Later I heard about your family situation. I didn't know you were going through that at the time. I was just scared and sad that you were leaving for another country, and I said those things to make you stay. After hearing about your family, I regretted what I said so much. It's all right. I hadn't told anyone about my family situation either. Let's consider this a reconciliation, okay? While tying the bandage on her knee, I smiled at Ashley. Ashley also smiled. Yes, a reconciliation after 15 years. After the turbulence incident, Ashley and I were able to return to the carefree relationship we used to have. I continued to be a captain, flying around the world, and Ashley, as a flight attendant on international flights, often flew on the same planes as me. Of course, all flight attendants support me as a captain, but with Ashley, our mutual understanding helped me a lot as she quickly grasped what I needed. Ashley also said, I feel more at ease on the planes you pilot than anyone else's. We maintained a good relationship. But there was one problem with our good working relationship. I still had feelings for Ashley, but now that we had become good colleagues, I didn't know how to tell her. I tried to ask her out several times, especially after long flights, but I was always interrupted by colleagues or ended up talking about work, and my feelings remained unspoken. We'll attend without ever being able to ask her out. They say first loves are never fulfilled. It was on one of those days, filled with such aching emotions. Ashley came and sat beside me as I was gazing at airplanes on the rooftop of the airport. Tyler, have you eaten yet? Not yet. I was just spacing out, watching the planes. I thought so. Here, I bought you a sandwich too. Oh, thanks. You're so thoughtful. Of course, you haven't changed since high school. Back then, you'd get so engrossed in talking about planes that you'd skip lunch. Really? I don't remember that. Yes, but I enjoyed listening to you talk passionately about planes. I didn't realize it then, but I became interested in planes too. That's why I became a flight attendant. I made you decide on a career because of me. Oh, no, I'm grateful to you. I think this job suits me. Ashley always looks me in the eye when she talks, but today she didn't. I was really happy that you were the only one who listened to me talk about planes until the end. Even when I went to Canada, I couldn't forget about you, Ashley. Me too. Her voice was inaudible, but I saw Ashley's lips move. Thinking it was now or never to ask her out, I took a deep breath. Ashley, I still have feelings for you. Tyler. Ashley's voice choked up. Ashley, will you be with me, with marriage in mind? Her response was lost in the roar of a departing airplane. But her face was full of smiles. Ashley, I love you. As I embraced her slender shoulders, Ashley shed large tears with her sparkling eyes. Tyler, I've loved you too, all this time. I always wanted to be more honest and jump into your arms, but I always ended up being stubborn, unable to say I wanted to be with you. It's okay, Ashley. I understand. I love everything about you, even your slightly clumsy ways. Let's always be together from now on the ground and in the sky. Promise we'll always be together. Don't go anywhere anymore. I won't go anywhere. If I do, it will be with you, Ashley. I remembered the time when I dropped out of high school. Back then, I was just a child, powerless, able only to walk away. But now, it's different. I've become an adult who stands on his own. So, I silently vowed to Ashley's tears that I would never let go, never let her feel lonely again. Years have passed since I returned to the U.S. Today, I'm flying with many passengers again. Ashley has now been promoted to chief. She efficiently and sometimes strictly manages the cabin attendants on board. The sky is beautiful. Before departure, gazing up at the sky from the airport, I reflect. Of course, the sky seen from the airport or in private is beautiful. Each country's sky has a different color, its own charm. But the most beautiful, I think, is the sky seen from the cockpit, carrying the lives of our passengers. Perhaps it's this tension that makes the sky seem even more beautiful. My life hasn't been smooth. There were times I was pushed to the depths of unexpected despair, but I'm glad I never gave up. I'm grateful to have grasped my dream. Thanks to that, I'm flying in the sky today. Ashley and I, having fulfilled our first love, are planning to marry this spring. I'll keep chasing what I believe in without giving up. If you don't give up, you can reach your goals someday. With these renewed thoughts, I head to the cockpit,